morning. In this session, we're going to be talking to Chris Jewell, who's the Chief Executive of Ascension Trust Scotland. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Andy.
Tell us a bit about Ascension Trust and street pastors in Scotland.
Yeah, street pastors is a remarkable movement started in 2003 in Britain by a minister, the Reverend Les Isaacs, down south, who had been in Jamaica and seen some of the troubles there and wondered about that, and then how we could deal with problems in Brixton, which were arising at that time. And out of that came this street pastor movement, really, which is a link between the local authority, the local police, and the local churches, trying to do something practical, helpful on the streets, particularly at that point, I think, to deal with crime. It's developed, really taken arms and legs since then. That was 2003, we're now 2021. And there are some 240 places in the UK where we have street pastors. They're also in Ireland, in America, in Antigua, and various other places. The motto of street pastors is simply to help, to care, and to listen, in any order, just what we find. They're Christians. They come from all sorts of denominations, working together for good. And I love that. I love that. If there's a man falling off a cliff, and you're a Baptist and I'm a Pentecostal, and we're going to sit at the top of the cliff and discuss what we are and what we're not and how our dogma works. No, we're not. We're both going to get hold of the rope and get this guy up. And I love that. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of the church, which has got so scattered in denominational terms, coming together with a common aim and purpose for good. So there are 20 now units in Scotland, which is roughly proportional to the population. Ascension Trust Scotland was formed about 2010, so that's 10 years ago. I think they were already operating before that, but the Scottish system is quite different in many ways to what you find down south, in cultural ways, in charity law ways, in legal ways, and how the police is formed. And so it was the wisdom was to set up Ascension Trust Scotland, exactly the same as down south, but able to take account of different regulations here. So we have about 20 units, one coming on board shortly up north, some 550 street pastors. There are 14,000 in the UK. We have a rigorous training program, and then we're let loose, if that's the right expression, on the streets. It is this partnership with the police and the local authority saying, we need you, we want you. And I remember in Inverclyde, where I am, that's 20 miles west of Glasgow, facing the police inspector at the time, three of us, about good Christian people, and potentially in his eyes wanting to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And you could just feel that he wanted, or he was thinking, I've got to rescue these people. They're adding to my workload, not taking away from it. He's a lovely guy. And he said, let me think about this. And in the meantime, he'd gone in touch with Aberdeen. And Aberdeen had started a year before. He had some police pals there. So he said to his colleagues in Aberdeen, have you heard of street pastors? What's this all about? And Aberdeen were able to say that yes, they've been running for a while. And the expression I think they used, grab these guys, they're like gold. Now we are a voluntary organisation, so that's good for everybody really. But it meant there was an extra presence, largely on the streets at night. Street pastors started because of the nighttime economy, and that was kind of 10 p.m. till 4 a.m. The first time I was out on such a session, I think it was Tuesday before I found myself again, in terms of tiredness and so on. But your body works into all of that, and we've just celebrated 10 years, as I say, where we are in Inverclyde. So they're out at all hours doing good, and there's just a bit in the Bible that says they went about doing good. Pretty obvious, pretty straightforward, and that's what street pastors do. And it takes all sorts of shapes and sizes and interactions, which I can tell you about. But that's the history.
That's very good. I think one of the things that you were saying there was that someone needed to explain what street pastors were from a trusted source, from the Aberdeen police to the Inverclyde police. When you're out and about in the nighttime economy, Do you have to explain what a street pastor is and does when you're out and around folks?
Yes, that comes up quite a lot, particularly if we're a new street pastor group in an area and they've never seen us. And remember that originally we were only out late at night around pubs, bars, clubs, making sure people got home safely. So yes, we had to answer that. And generally we would say, look, we're just out, we're a group of volunteers. We just want to make sure that you're safe, that you're having a good time, that you don't come to any harm. And expressions of that can be, we won't leave a young lady on her own. She's lost her phone, she's lost her boyfriend, she's lost a group of pals she's with, she's on her own. It's 3:30 a.m. There are cars cruising about. We won't let her stay on her own. We'll make sure she gets home safely. We do walk through crowds. When nightclubs come out, they don't come out in ones, as you know, they come out in hundreds. One celebrated occasion where we can tell atmospheres, and this atmosphere was not good. In the 100 times I've been out, there's maybe only 3 or 4 times when I've known this is dark, and we'll pray into that as a Christian. Anyway, there's loads of milling about, and it was about to kick off, and the 3 of us are there, and you say, well, what do you do? So I'm the leader, so it's up to me, and I decided we would just walk through, just amble through. And street pastors amble, not because they're old and tired, more because, like police, they can take absolutely everything in as they go. We pick up bottles and put them in bins because they're prospective weapons. We've got some street pastors that can see bottles at 300 yards. I can't even see the road. So we just wandered through this, and what happens is that it just calmed down. It just calmed down. We also carry lollipops, and if you're 2 young men fighting or wanting to fight, it's more difficult with a lollipop in your mouth than it is without. So it's also a sugar rush, which is good coming out of some of these places, worse for wear. So we have a few tools like that. And I remember one of our street pastors, he's an ex-military man and served in terrible places, seen terrible things. And he said to me afterwards, he was scared. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, why? You know. And then the other one, there's only 3 of us out. The other one emailed or messaged me at the beginning of the week saying, wow, wasn't that interesting? You know, that as Christians, we know that God is with us. We know that we carry an atmosphere. And to go back to your question, they'll say, yeah, what are you out here for? And we're in dark blue uniforms. You can't miss us. We stay together, and so on. There's lots of rules about what we can do and what we should do, and we just say we're out to make sure everybody's okay. And in more recent times, because of the pandemic, we can't get out at our essential times. As we've got better known in an area, and as we are seen for good, a force for good, and we get to know the bouncers at the pubs and the club owners and whoever's out in the street, then our credibility grows, and that question happens less often. And of course, the other side of that is that people come back to us and say, I'm so glad you were out that night because whatever it was. And street pastors has actually spawned rail pastors who are on the trains in certain parts of the world. I think Network Rail would have us on every line, every moment of the day. And we have school pastors, so we're interacting with children and teachers and so on in a school environment. And we now have kind of response pastors, which are people able at a moment's notice to drop things and come out if there's a major tragedy or difficulty nationally even. We were out actually in a major gas leak situation in the north of Scotland not long ago, where our role was not to fix the gas pipes, clearly. It was to make sure that the householders knew what was going on and how they could act safely. And we're doing a bit of work with vaccination centres in the same sort of vein, not jagging anybody, but making sure that everybody knows where they're going and they're safe and so on. And that's really comforting for people. Without taking this too far, loneliness in this pandemic has shot up. You know, I've heard statistics saying 70% of people are lonely. Now, that doesn't mean that some of these people don't interact with others, but they still feel lonely or alone. Mental well-being is, the problems have increased hugely over this last period. And because we can't get out at night, we have experimented by coming out in the day. And it's a whole new game, because we're not talking to people worse for wear at 3 o'clock in the morning. We're talking to the general public, who again don't really know us because they're not out at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that job in your question, how do you get asked, is happening all over again, but through the daytime. And one of the benefits of this is that we're able to be a help, I hope, to much wider proportion of the population. And it might have been 5 years ago that they would need our help. You know, they're on top of things. But this pandemic has caused a lot of deep searching and deep thinking and so on. And people are genuinely scared, or they've lost loved ones they can't say goodbye to, or they couldn't. The kids are worried about exams and jobs and so on. And there's a lot of job losses. There's difficulties at home because everybody's jammed up together for so long. So what we're finding is there's a whole range of ways that we can listen, care and help, and we can refer to agencies as we need to. And it's amazing what a few happy words, comforting words, does for people. It's the simplest thing on earth, but it's one of the most profound things on earth. And as I say, as one of our directors says, we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we're a listening people and a caring people, and hopefully helping people as well.
What kind of spiritual questions do you get from the general public?
Well, you get all sorts depending on what sort of mood they're in. You get quite a few people who will blame God for everything. You know, children dying of cancer and earthquakes and all that sort of thing. Amongst young people, it's often, I'm angry at God because he took away my nana, my grandmother, because the relationship that forms between a child and the grandparents, and I'm a grandparent myself, so I know this, is peculiar. I mean, peculiarly good and rich, because grandparents let you away with things your parents won't, and all the rest of it. And then, of course, because of the age gap, the nana dies, and the young person who's 20 or so is just hurting because they've lost a loved one. And some people will resort to drink because they can't deal with it, they can't handle it. Others will deal with it other ways. So in that sense, we won't take on people too hard. You know, if you've got the person who's really having a go at us because he wants to have a go at it, we happen to be there. I mean, if it was somebody from another organization, you might have had a go at them. And we know when to engage and we know when to stop. The beautiful thing is we can engage. You know, I think it's an absolute privilege to be able to seek to help, certainly to listen in other people's lives. You know, you don't often get that. And I forget, street pastors are generally out at the weekend, although now some in weekdays. And I forget sometimes on a Monday that I don't have this uniform on. And I'm walking with my wife along the road, and this guy kind of looks, or I take the lead and I say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And he'll say, "Oh, it's this and that and this and this and that." And I said, and I'll respond and so on. And that will be it. And we'll just say, "Hello." And on we go. And my wife will say, "Who was that?" Oh, I said, "I haven't a clue." I'm just being a street pastor on a Monday when I forget that it's a Saturday. And that's a lovely thing, in fact, because your whole attitude is not, you know, being a Christian is not a Sunday morning 11 o'clock thing. It's a 24/7 thing. And being a street pastor in many ways, or the characteristics that a street pastor employs and uses, and they're not false, they're real, is a 24/7 thing as well. I just have to watch that I've not got my uniform on, and who the heck are you? You know, we're not in our ivory towers. We're not on our knees, and being on your knees is a good place to pray. We're actually out engaging. I love that word, engaging. We're deliberately out, like the shepherd looking for the sheep who might be in trouble. He doesn't know they're in trouble, but they might be in trouble, so he's going to go anyway. Some shepherds know how many sheep they've got and they know they're okay, but in the general sense of that. So we go out not knowing what might hit us. We talk to the police just to be aware of anything that's on before we go out. They, as I say, they love us because we're an extra pair of hands. We can deal with very minor things that would take them paperwork and ages to deal with, so that they can get on with the serious side of what they do. And we can be a force for good in tackling people's issues. You know, I'm mad at God because we have some lovely female street pastors who are like mother hens, and we'll stop for the one. There's three of us, but if you're in trouble, one of us will talk to you, and we might talk to you for an hour, and the other two will be about, but we won't rush on, and we won't separate. We stop for the one. And that's another part of what I like. We've got as much time as you need from us while we're out there, and we want to help.
I think one of the things that I know I appreciated from my time in Street Pastors was that you were part of a team, you were part of a group, and you said earlier, about having people from different traditions, and sitting at tea break at sort of 2 a.m. before the clubs closed, having a conversation about stuff. Do you find that it changes the person who comes in to be a volunteer?
I think absolutely, and I think in a number of ways, and very often these ways you don't find in your secular life for whatever reason, depending on what role you're doing. They form part of a team. And we know the acronym, together everyone achieves more equals team. And that's absolutely true, because they're a support to each other. And you watch street pastors who might have joined us a bit nervous, not knowing what they might meet, how they might react. And they grow to understand, but they grow in confidence. And we've got loads of examples of people who they're Christian, they want to be a street pastor, and we've watched their own faith, their own how they work, how they interact, develop, and they become, I don't like the expression more rounded people, but fuller people, if you like, in that sense. And we watch another one that you might think comes up is what we call prejudgmentalism. I can't even spell it, but anyway, prejudgmentalism, which is I'm a grandparent and a parent. And you could be out there and there's a young lady rather scantily dressed, maybe deliberately, certainly doesn't want a coat because when she's blotto she'll forget to take it home and so on. And you could get people thinking, my goodness, if I wouldn't like you out like that, and so on. So that's a judgment, right? And I've watched in attitudes of people who are new and fresh in this, and they might come with some what we might call baggage of that type, and they lose it. They lose it. There's a young girl, she's 16, she's underage, somebody's bought her drink. She's slumped in a bus stop at 11 o'clock at night. She's spewed up, she's been sick all over herself, and she's in a mess. So what's our reaction? How can I help? What's been happening here? Let's get you some water, let's get you cleaned up. Do you live near here? Are you okay with your parents? Can we get them for you and get you home, because you're clearly not great? And we've done that a number of times. And what I love about this is whatever your preconceptions, even misconceptions are, they disappear. They disappear. Your whole frame of mind, and it should be the right one, of course, is how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? And people have grown to lose, if you like, some of the stuff that you might think, well, I suppose comes with us. We make judgments every second of the day, so some of them won't be right, but we become much more rounded individuals. And I think we listen to God, could I say that, clearer, easier. I'm in this melee, what do I do? I don't look at the textbook because it isn't there. I won't remember what page it was anyway. What do I do? Lord, what do we want to do here? And we find that kind of prompt, what it's like. I've got this little equation. I'm not a mathematician. Desperation equals response, right? So if you don't care about a thing and you're a bit blasé about it, then you might get a response, you might not, but you're not particularly listening for it. If you're desperate for whatever reason, you're hanging off a cliff and you need help, the ice is broken in your skating experience on the loch, whatever, you're going to shout and you're going to need help and you're going to want help. And I think that ability to hear hones up because we're faced with a lot of practical situations. Some where we're really practical help. One of my ways in as a street pastor is to hear a foreign accent. And I say, oh, that's not a Greenock accent, is it? And this young lad said, no. I said, great. And what brings you here? Oh, he said, I work up here these days. Oh, great. I said, and what do you work as? Oh, he said, I've got mental health difficulties. And we pray for people that are not well. would it be all right if I asked our folks to pray? So he said, you could do that. So that was it. And we toddled on, and we maybe prayed a bit later in the evening when we were on our own. I write up a report on the Monday of what happened on the Saturday night. And just as I'm doing this, a Facebook message comes in, which says, you don't know me, but I'm the mother of naming the boy we'd spoken to on the Saturday night. I just want to thank you for all that you did for him and for all that you do for others. He suffers from depression. He was particularly low that night, and yet he cannot speak highly enough about you. Now, I don't know that we saved his life. I know that we put him on a better path. Why did we do that? Because I said, that's not a Green accent, is it? So it's simple words of engagement.
Yeah.
And I think people, as I say, are lonely, they're boiled up, they're frustrated, they're whatever. And a simple, hello, can we help? Phrase maybe differently than that can have a tremendous impact on things. And so we believe in providence. I don't have the word coincidental in my language anymore. It's God incidental for me. You know, when I pray, coincidences happen type stuff. And I could, you know, there's loads of instances where, because we've been about at the right time, at the right place, we've been able to be of practical help to people. We're not out to preach. We're not out to laud the gospel on you, tell you what a bad person you are and what you should do to repent. Not at all. We're there to help you. If you want us to pray about a situation, 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning, I'm praying with a 19-year-old young lad whose girlfriend had been raped by a known friend, quote unquote, and she was in a terrible state. And he said, could you pray for my girlfriend? So we prayed for 15 seconds, open-eyed, closed eyes, didn't matter, that she would get through this. And that is the opportunity for being able to come alongside people, not to preach, but to help them as best we know how.
That's the mission of Jesus, just there, being with the people who are in need. Chris, what would be your main advice to anyone who is considering being a street pastor?
Well, there's a Nike advert. If you know Nike, that's the running shoes. I don't run that often, so the name isn't that well known to me. But Nike, I'm an advertising guy with my marketing hat on, and Nike ran an ad which had just a tick eventually. I think they had their brand name in to begin with. And then it was their logo, which was a tick. But there was words beside that tick, which now aren't there. They're so well known that they just need the tick, and it's Nike. But the words were, just do it. Just do it. And I'm not being silly by saying, don't think about it, don't consider the implications, don't worry about your sleep mode and all the rest of it. But put yourself out there. Now, as street pastors, we'll say to people quite regularly, look, we quite understand you won't know what this is and what it feels like, and you know how threatened you feel or how comfortable you feel or how you view the opportunity. Come out with us. Just come out with us for a bit one night and feel it. No obligation. Just come and sense it and sense you in it and sense us. You know, that we're not off the wall people. We're quite sane and sensible and logical and just have a heart for people. And if you've got a heart for people, I think that's one of the prerequisites, really. If you've got a heart for people, I think on my epitaph, if they bother to put one up, it might be, he made a difference. And I think that's what I'd say to you, without it sounding too lyrical. You know, here's an opportunity to make a difference for good. Come and feel us out. Come and see it. And some people will say, oh, it was great, but it's not for me. And that's absolutely fine. And interestingly enough, because we're doing daytime patrols, which are shorter by their nature, and they're different because you're a wider audience and they're not many of them drunk, and you have many more meaningful conversations than you might have at 4 o'clock in the morning, then that can appeal to a different raft of people. Not everybody wants to be out at 4 a.m. As I say, it takes some getting used to. But here, what about 2 to 4 in the afternoon or whatever? And the big opportunity is to be able to engage that word again, to engage with people where they are at, not where you want them to be, but where they are at. It's a rule of advertising. Don't take people from a position that they're not at. You need to talk to them where they're at and then move them to where your ad wants to take them and so on. So come and feel us out. Come and enjoy the experience. And we've had MSPs and councillors and the like out with us. And that's great because, you know, if you're in an Ivory Council tower, sometimes, or if you're in your church tower, sometimes you don't know what it's like out there. And we're more than happy to take you out there and just let you feel what it's like, because we think that that will make you, in your judgments in your own life, much more aware of what society looks like and the things that are hurting and the people that are hurting and what we can try and do something about. You know, we can't hug these days. Everybody wants to hug, even the person you probably like the least because of lockdown. And street pastors get oodles of hugs. They don't go out with their arms out, but they get, oh, you're a street pastor, and so on. And for me, it's a 2-second prayer. You know, you're hugging me, but I'm praying for you as it happens. So it's a 2-second prayer. But people are so hurting, and I just think that society's lost its way. You know, the rules and regulations were becoming so regulated, what we can and can't do. And I feel for teachers, you know, and the relationship with pupils, and you know, and there are wrong people, and I'm not suggesting for a moment there aren't, but whenever we're out, I mean, my former senior bank manager rolled out of, I'd left the bank by then, rolled out of a function. Chrissy's head, how are you doing? Gives me this huge hug. And I'm thinking, you're not going to do this on Monday morning, are you? You know? And of course, what happens on Saturday night, if it was a Saturday night, stays with us. So if I met him on Monday morning, well, I'm never going to start saying, my goodness, you were worse for wearing Saturday night, weren't you? What? It's completely confidential. It doesn't go in that sense. But we've lost the act of interacting to some extent. You know, it's all kind of either formal, or we've all come with problems up here. In other words, we've got the answer before we've asked the question, and all the rest of it. And the sense of community, and I'm not meaning it's just down to hugs at all, but the sense of interacting, the sense of being there for each other. The old tenement in Scotland where you'd go up a flight of stairs to get a bag of sugar or a bowl of sugar because you'd run out, where we all helped each other. And I live in a one-sided street. If I pointed to the window, you would see a river. And we just don't have that. And I think we've lost this sense of togetherness. And material wealth gets into it, envy gets into it, jealousy gets into it, anger gets into it, and so on. And street pass is a wonderful way, in my view, of just letting that all go. You know, it's not important where we are. What's important is, are you okay? Talk to us, you know, or whatever. And as I say, for anybody wanting to be a street pastor, I think you gain more than you think that you expend or take time to. You're the richer. I know you've helped a lot of people when you're out there, but I tell you, you are the richer as well. Yeah.
You've told us a couple of times that you've been in marketing. So give us your elevator pitch. Summarize your experience as a street pastor.
My own experience, I've been a street pastor for 10 years. Being a marketer, one wants to change the world in a Christian context for good, as I've said. And here was an opportunity to come out of whatever ivory towers you find yourself in. I'm a busy guy, I'm a church goer. We're in loads of meetings. I've got 2 roles that I do, so I don't have a lot of time. I'm a tennis freak, although I've got so old now that it's no good anymore. Blah, blah, blah. And this was an opportunity to do mission. And I almost don't like the word mission because it sounds like it's so predetermined what you're trying to do. And, you know, in marketing terms, you've got a catchment area, you've got a product to promote, the gospel or life in Jesus Christ. You can know something very different to what you know at the moment, but I don't tend to view it in those terms. It's really sharing and loving. You might have heard of the Vicar of Baghdad, a lad called Andrew White. There's a church there, terrible place in terms of warfare. And someone asked Andrew at something I was at, I'm thinking up of setting this Christian course up, but I don't know how to go about it. And Andrew's reply was pithy, but profound. He said, well, that's straightforward. All you need to do is love, love, and love. And I think for me, the love of God in my heart, which, you know, you feel as a Christian, or you should feel so often, and I do, and many others do, sends you out there. You know, you have a love for the lost meaning that, you know, lost in life, lost in relationships, lost in dependence on alcohol or drugs or whatever it happens to be. And as I say, we're well trained. There are about 13 elements of training to be a street pastor and so on, to understand some of these issues. But that's not the driving force. The driving force is love. The driving force is, I want to help. I want to be out there. I want you to find the person I found as a 19-year-old in my case, just a few years ago. I want you to find them, because I know that you'll be the better for it. So this is an expression of that, without it being, as I say, going out there to preach, to tell them what bad people they are or whatever. It's nothing like that. It's to love, come alongside, pray, and hope. Hope's a tremendous word. And hope that they'll find something that you know. It's like having a treasure. You can't leave it in the cupboard and not tell anybody, especially if you know it's there to be spent. You've got to go out and tell people, and that's the kind of motivation.
Awesome. Chris, thank you very much. It's been very informative, and I hope everybody gets just that flavour and the passion that you're showing about this work. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy.